Kia ora koutou, everyone. Hopefully you can see me. We've got a new camera system, which we're just figuring out, so sorry about that. So welcome everyone to the Otago Energy Research Seminar. So this is the first one of 2026. And we're very honoured to have Paul Fabianek here to speak to us. You can fix the pronunciation of my name in a moment. And so Paul is a PhD candidate, just submitted his PhD, but he's visiting us here at Otago for a 3-week stay.
Maybe Trump will prolong my stay. But stopping.
Let's hope the weather is nice for your stay. So Paul is a research associate and PhD candidate in energy economics at RWTH Aachen University, and his research is I mean, he's an engineer, but he's done a lot of social science research. So his topic today is charged for change: consumer preferences and behavior regarding battery electric vehicles and infrastructure implications. So hopefully everyone online can hear okay. Please send a message in the text if there are any issues, but I'll hand over to Paul. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so the pronunciation of my surname was pretty accurate. You can say Fabianek, this is how my family told me to say it, but people say Fabianek, whatever. So thanks for introducing. Yes, this is kind of my first opportunity to present the whole idea of my PhD project. So yeah, last week I started preparing some slides on that. I will kind of introduce the whole idea, and then you can pick where we will deep dive into, like in which of the chapters. So yeah, it's about EVs in Germany and the charging infrastructure and all the implications that come with it. So Germany set a target in 2021. We want 15 million electric vehicles on German roads by 2030. So there were tax reductions, etc., and other incentives for consumers, for e-vehicle drivers, potential ones to buy EVs. There were some studies saying that we're even capable of reaching even more than 15 million. Why did we do that, or why did the government back then decided to focus on this target? Well, on the local scale, EVs, well, they replace fossil fuel-driven vehicles, so the air becomes cleaner, less noise emissions, and in the end, Europe does not have access to that many fossil fuels. We see it right now. So we want to decarbonize, we want to electrify to get also rid of this dependency. Well, and on the global scale, we all have the same goal. We want to try to fight against the climate change, mitigate greenhouse gas emissions. And when using renewable electricity, electric vehicles are a good means to do that. In the end, German households did not adopt to electric vehicles as fast as the government probably thought they might. So yeah, well, it's all German, but like it's German news saying how realistic is it to reach 15 million electric vehicles by 2030. The next government then stopped supporting EVs in that intensity. So the goals or the targets were kind of postponed. And this year, in the end, the German government just dropped the goal of 15 million electric vehicles. And well, the technology is there, they work. China's, with each week kind of showing us what electric vehicles and their batteries are capable of. And it's a quick ramp up, but still German households do not adapt that quickly. So the target is shown here, like 15 million by 2030. These are the actual numbers of EVs on the German roads. And we see, well, to just, if we would linearly approach this target, we are far, far behind. So this is kind of the main motivation of my PhD, to find out why is this the case and what is lacking. So for this electric vehicle ecosystem, we have three main components. Electric vehicles. So what is their core role? They replace kind of the fossil-driven ones. They have a certain performance, cost, and other utility or usability attributes. And the key challenges right now are the high upfront costs. There are still range and charging time constraints. And in the end, each consumer, each driver has different heterogeneous needs. Then we have the charging infrastructure, so the connection to the grid We have public and private ones, so they enable the energy access and also shape the user experience, because this is the place where they interact with the grid. Here in Germany, where we've made some progress, but still the EV charging infrastructure, the public one especially, is still not really available, sometimes unreliable. We have congestions, we have waiting times, we have inequalities or injustices in the access to charging infrastructure, especially the private one. And also the pricing is really complicated and it's a mess. There are so many operators with different pricing models, etc. And this is really difficult for users. And then we have the electricity grid, which is connected, or the connection is made by the charging infrastructure, but here also we need to ensure the supply while also pushing the renewable intermittent renewable energy sources. And yeah, that's the challenge. And with this, peak loads, local bottlenecks, etc., come with that. And well, it seems as if this is kind of a road into challenges and struggles, but we can also think the electric vehicles as a solution or as an enabler. So for the grid, for example, we can, if we use the electric vehicles in a smart way, we can reduce bottlenecks or high peak loads. We can help integrating the renewable energies. On the charging infrastructure level for the operators, if we incentivize e-vehicle users to reach high utilizations of single charging points, this is also plus like a good thing for the operators. And we can also increase or make the experience for the vehicle drivers better if we kind of incentivize the more balanced use of infrastructure. And for the electric vehicle owner, in the end, if we introduce dynamic electricity prices to incentivize them to go to certain places or charge at certain times, they can also get lower electricity costs if they follow this price signal. So this is kind of the, yes?
Sorry, I just was wondering if I could ask a bit of context, because I don't know Germany very well. But when you talk about the private charging infrastructure challenges, is that because most people are in big apartments that they don't have, a cable outlet?
Yes,
like we would do here.
Yeah, so in urban regions, it's really dense. And yeah, this is something that was quite new for me. Here, the houses usually have one floor, right? Like one level. In Germany, like in the cities, they build up to 5, 6, 7 levels. So there's not that much access to places, to areas where you could actually put your private vehicle and charge. Especially if you're not the owner of the house, you do not decide whether there's a wall box, like a private charging point or not. So especially in urban regions or people that do not own property, they don't have this access to charging in general. While in the suburbs or in the rural areas, where people have lands, they have driveways, they have garage, they can, and usually they own the ownership of the property or the rate or more people own their own homes, kind of. So for them, it's easier to have the private charging infrastructure, and then life with an electric vehicle becomes much easier.
And also the 15 million, what's the total number of vehicles currently?
45 million.
Okay, so it was quite an ambitious target.
Yeah, it was ambitious. Well, in Europe, other countries, Norway, Denmark, some show that it's possible. Well, So in my PhD, I tried to address all of these aspects or these parts of the EV ecosystem. So starting with the first one, the vehicle itself, what do electric vehicle potential and actual electric vehicle drivers want? What do they need? What are the main criteria that are important for their adoption decision? Here I addressed zero emission vehicles, so I also included other, for example, hydrogen electric vehicles. And this is the paper that, this was the result kind of this, this initiative. Then for the charging infrastructure, I addressed both the private and the public ones. So 2 studies, one private, one public. And there the user experience was addressed, kind of the customer journey, how is it right now, and what do they need to satisfy the actual charging needs and mobility needs. And for the private charging, I focused on a sharing idea, kind of Airbnb related. So there are hosts owning the wallbox, the charging station, and they are the chargees, someone who comes to the host's property and charges the host's charging, like private charging point. So 2 studies resulted out of this initiative. And then we have the electricity grid, and there I followed the main idea of dynamic prices to incentivize flexible charging or flexibility in general in electric vehicles. And I focused on 3 dimensions. So incentivizing people to change the time of charging, the location of charging, and the duration of charging. So what do we want mainly in terms of pricing or reduction of prices to accept these suggestions? And I addressed, or I did this in 4 different settings. So at home, or like in neighborhoods, in living neighborhoods, kind of at work, on highways, on the road, and destination charging while shopping. And these are the 2 studies that are the result of this this research question. And now my idea for today is that we or you can decide, maybe by just raising hands, which of these studies do you find most interesting? Because then we can deep dive into that. And if we have enough time, we can probably even dive into 2 topics. So I will just go from top to bottom. We have the adoption of the vehicle itself. You can just raise your hands if you're interested in that. 3, 2, 1. Nobody. 2. Then we have the interaction with the public charging infrastructure. 1. Then we have the idea of wallbox sharing. 3. And then we have dynamic pricing study number 1, which is mainly focusing on these 3 dimensions: time, location, and duration. That's also 1. And the 5th one addresses or focuses on the different places where we could prolong the charging duration. That's 1. So we will go with wallbox sharing, right? This was 3 of you. And like I said, probably have more time, then we might also go into the other ones. So this was a joint work, Reinhard Martina, that's my supervisor. And this is another professor from RWTH University. And he and his group, they developed a decision support tool based on the theory of value-focused thinking and multi-attribute decision theory. I think I mixed up some words, but this is a tool hands-on for decision makers in each possible sphere. And if you go through it thoroughly, then it might take up to 8 hours to, in the end, come up with a decision, because you start with your value system, then you come up with different alternatives to tackle your, for answering kind of your question or for your decision. Then you value, or you rank kind of the relevant values. And in the end, you kind of have scores for each alternative And this should help you in doing decisions. And I kind of used his tool, and he supervised me a bit on that. This is why he's also part of this study. Yeah, we will go through from motivation towards the concept of Warburg sharing, the research questions. We will probably skip the related research, so we might tackle another topic, approach, results, conclusion. So why do we might want to do that? We have in Germany around 150,000 public charging points right now. So this was, yeah, when I conducted the study. So now we have a bit more public charging stations, but still not that many. While this is not shown here, but the private charging stations, we have over 1 million. So the potential is huge. We see back then the electric vehicle numbers were still rising quite sharply. Then this is not shown here. The growth rate was sharply reduced. Well, if we want to make people adopt electric vehicles, they need charging infrastructure. We have, like I said, some public charging stations. The network becomes denser and denser, but the huge potential of private charging stations.
Sorry, can I ask another question? It's another German context question. So I bought an electric vehicle a year ago, and I thought I would normally need a box, but the salesperson said, just try it. You probably can't. In New Zealand, you just shop in your garage, plug it in the wall, it takes 12 hours. And she was right, I haven't bought one. So that number is the total of electric vehicles. Does everyone in Germany has an electric vehicle also have a wallbox?
No, not everybody, but when you follow this, yeah, kind of this idea of, we talked about that yesterday about Roger's theory of, what was it, adoption of innovations, kind of diffusion of innovations. You have the pioneers. They will go in it no matter how uncomfortable it is, because they just they are techies or whatever. They want just to be the first. Then you have the pioneers, you have the early adopters, and well, the more you go into majority, the early and the late majority, the more needs and the more barriers they might see. So the first ones, I guess, because there was not that much public infrastructure, charging infrastructure, they charged at home. And the early adopters, usually they are also a bit more well off. So usually they own property and they have the possibility to install a private wallbox. Now, people or German individuals are actually buying electric vehicles without having the access to a private wallbox. But the public charging infrastructure also became more dense. And then maybe you address that. There's this one thing: how often do people actually have to charge their vehicle? Usually, it's maybe if you just commute to your work and it's 20 kilometers, for example, to go to your work and back, or 40, you might need to charge once or twice per week. But people who don't have electric vehicle driving experience, you don't know what they think, but they think they need to charge, they think that they need the access every day. Usually they don't think about their daily commuting, but they think about their holiday trip that they do once per year. And this is kind of this is what they consider when buying electric or when not buying electric vehicles. So what I want to say is consumers do not think rationally, not always, and they have certain ideas of electric vehicles. And when you never drove one, never charged one, then you don't know what you actually need when it comes to infrastructure. Well, because we want to motivate people to adopt, we need, or if you want to do that, you need to make them feel comfortable with their decision. So having many public charging points, and story-wise in this paper, also opening up the private charging infrastructure for the public. This is the idea behind this study. So, well, the public charging points, because more and more people buy electric vehicles, the utilization becomes higher and higher, and during certain periods there might even be congestion. we need to satisfy the customers to keep them adopting electric vehicles. So the idea is, like I said, make the private charging infrastructure publicly available. And the concept behind it is that you have the host. This person owns the private charging point. Then you have the chargee, like a random electric vehicle driver that comes to the host place to charge their vehicle. And you most probably need some sort of sharing platform operator, an intermediate between those two parties for communication, payment, reservation, booking, etc. So we ask ourselves, under what conditions are hosts willing to share their property, and under which conditions are the chargees willing to accept this offer? Okay, like, yeah, some people, mostly from China, they already addressed kind of this concept. Mostly they did not address, or actually no one back then addressed the social side or the human side of it, like the willingness to actually do that, but more the modeling behind it. So blockchain, etc., like some non-cooperative game models, etc. This is why we came in place. Well, I need to update that. So we already submitted it, and right now we're in the revise and resubmit phase. Let's go into it. So what did we actually do? First, I conducted interviews with pioneers, like startups that actually tried to establish Wallbox sharing schemes. There were 4 in Germany and a 5th one in Great Britain. This number is not correct. So in Germany, nobody actually succeeded in this regard. The company from Great Britain, they actually make it work. So I will talk about that later, why this was the case. And then we conducted 2 online workshops. So first, we had electric vehicle owners that also have a Wallbox. One is one of these groups, and the other group were people who did not own an own Wallbox. And we tried to, like I said, try to figure out under which conditions are they willing to kind of match. So we went in each workshop, they were parallel in design. We started with the individuals to brainstorm their target system, kind of, what do they need when it comes to mobility, when it comes to charging. And then we went into group discussions to kind of aggregate the results and define then the main criteria, the main targets. Then we went into the definition of alternatives. So how could a private Wallbox sharing scheme look like from the perspective like designed by the potential users, hosts and chargees? And then in the end, we weighted the preferences. So how important are the criteria? Yeah, the goal is to be able to evaluate different Wallbox sharing schemes. I just copy-pasted this presentation from the conference. So 3 years ago, probably, it was the last time I presented this. So like I said, the idea of value-focused thinking was included in this study. So we want to structure the target system, the goal system of the decision makers. And we need them to, formulate their objectives in this context of Wallbox sharing. We differentiate between mean objectives and fundamental ones. So when kind of working with the individuals that come up with their targets, with their goals, we always make them ask themselves, why do I need this specific goal? Why, for example, do I want the charging to be cheap? Is this a fundamental objective, or is it just a mean one? This, in case, usually is a mean one, because why do I want cheap prices? I don't want to spend that much energy, that much money, because I want to pile up my money Why? Because I want to have a living standard and security on all this. So by always asking kind of why, you end up with the fundamental objectives, which actually like possess the value for the decision, while the others are just like leading to them. Yeah, I actually told you that before. So we first went into this individual brainstorming, then aggregated for the whole group, and then used the multi-criteria decision-making process to actually, in the end, also put weights on the single fundamental criteria. This is the idea behind it. So we want to make up some sort of scheme like that, with all the objectives having specific weights, and also have scales for all the objectives, where you in the end kind of can evaluate a certain Warburg sharing alternative. And this is then the kind of equation behind it. We take the weight, we take the utility of a specific fundamental objective, multiply it, sum it up for all the relevant criteria, and come up with the perceived quality kind of the Warburg sharing alternative.
Excuse me.
Yes.
What type of statistical method are you using to come up with the weights? Is it some version of a logit model, or is it...
In this model, like it was, we used this decision-making tool of Professor von Nietzsche,
Yeah.
and they used pairwise comparisons of all the relevant criteria.
Mhm.
And then behind it, I think it's kind of with the analytic hierarchy process. In this case, I don't know if you're familiar with it. So it's the eigenvalue method behind it to then come up with this how we call it, the matrix kind of with the weights inside, and then you aggregate it for all the individuals and get actually percentages in the end, summing up, like for all the criteria have a certain percentage of importance of weight, and they all sum up to 100 or to 1.
And when you said at the beginning of your talk that you mentioned that a certain decision-making process took 8 hours, is that this thing here?
No, because the tool initially was designed for single individuals,
Mhm.
and we introduced together with one of the PhDers of Professor von Nietzsche, like a group decision
Right.
model, like mode of
Yep.
this tool.
Yep.
So we had 6 hours with them, but we also had to explain them how it works. So in the end, it was not the 8 hours deep dive into it, but more probably like 4 hours actually working on the topic with the weights and with the brainstorming, etc.
It is interesting because there are 2 different reasons why you might want to get weights of attributes. One is to predict how people behave, and another is in some sense to get what are their kind of rational weights of the attribution. It seems to me you're doing the second. You're getting them to sort of engage in all these discussions and reflections. It's kind of their reflective weights rather than, and not necessarily the weights that you might use to predict their behaviors.
Yes,
Do
like,
what I mean?
yes. Where the weights, thing is, the sample was not big. So we had in total, I think, 15 participants.
Oh, I see. Right.
On both the workshops. So it was more, well, we could see, for example, that women had, I think I will come to this slide later, they put more weight onto the security fundamental goal. So when I come to a host property, I want it to be like camera secured and nice lighting, and not like it should be close to the main roads, etc. And we've seen that, we had like 3 to 4 women per workshop. They put more weight on this, but it's just n equals 4. Like we like on a large scale survey, we would be able to actually deep dive into these quantitative preferences. Here it was more to get a feeling about it. The first one.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so now we go into the objective system of the chargees. So the first workshop, and the first fundamental objective was sustainability. So they preferred, or they wanted green electricity. They want efficient use of resources, which also already happens when you use the already existing private charging infrastructure. Then we have had the social well-being. So like I said, safety conditions also were included in that. Here we kind of had the group kind of split it, because some of them, they like the idea of a community feeling, so sharing as a community, local in their village, in their community, in their city, while the other half kind of they preferred in more anonymous way, like more like the public charging. They did not want to interact with the host. It should be all smooth and automated. Then the cost, fair prices. They wanted different pricing methods. Some of them preferred it to be like with some sort of contract via the like with a specific host, or others just wanted like PayPal style, like via a third, like a contractor or like the third intermediate party. They all agreed, it's not on that slide, but they all agreed that it should be cheaper than the public charging, because household electricity prices in Germany are cheaper than the public ones, and the host kind of gives you his prices or her prices, which are cheaper than the public ones. Then unrestricted mobility. Like I said in the introduction of the whole PhD, availability, functionality, accessibility, those are the main things that people want from charging infrastructure in general. So when dealing with a host, it's the same thing. Like they don't want to kind of fit in, like just like use a small time during some days that hosts make their charging infrastructure available, but a more reliable and accessible design. And in the end, it should be, the ease of use should be granted, so user-friendly, easy, not too many interactions, too many steps to in the end be able to connect your vehicle with the private charger. The host perspective looks quite the same. So if we flip from chargee to host, you see the main goals are the same. I just put the black ones. I stress the black ones that are the ones that actually differ from the chargee perspective. So when it comes to social well-being, also the safety and all this, this part was included. So what happens if someone drives over your roses or damages parts of your property? How do you, who would pay, kind of, and will insurance schemes need to cover that? When it comes to the profitability, the hosts, they realize that they won't get rich by sharing their private charging station. It was more, they wanted to cover the costs that were needed to make their infrastructure publicly accessible.
How many of them live themselves?
All, like in the workshops, everyone owned a vehicle. So also the hosts. Okay. So the hosts, they owned also their own vehicles. So they had to, which is then included in unrestricted mobility, they have to kind of schedule it with their own charging needs. And they need to kind of plan the sharing and still satisfy their own charging needs. And this is also a main reason why the rollout in Germany is quite difficult when it comes to ease of use from the host perspective, calibration law, taxation, income, etc. You might right now even need to start a small business to sell electricity to the chargees, even though it's almost nothing. Like you will probably even earn less than. Even though it's highly frequented, you might stay below like 2,000 New Zealand dollars, which usually is then under German taxation law, not even taxed. Because when you do this as some sort of business, this is not enough for the taxation, for the tax. I don't know what's the English word, like the institution that deals with taxes, they usually wouldn't bother, but it's not clear yet.
How much would it cost to install the wallbox?
Like a standard wallbox, usually around 2,000 New Zealand dollars. There were governmental funding programs that reduced the price, but they are not calibrated in the German, in the German to fulfill the needs for the public German landscape. So if it's just you charging you take it from your house, kind of your grid operator or your electricity provider, they will know. But when you want to sell electricity publicly to someone else, you need to know it's the German Eichrecht, like it's a German thing, it's not even an EU thing. For example, Tesla chargers, they don't, I think they still don't, or they didn't until like 2 or 3 years, they did not comply with that. They had just some sort of exemption. So if you want to sell electricity to others, you would need to buy a wallbox which is capable of doing that, and that's more around 3,000 euros instead, like 6,000 New Zealand dollars instead of 2,000. So yeah, you need to want it to make it officially work. Okay, so host and chargees, like I said, we can just see tendencies because there are not that many participants. While presenting, I registered that this is not the final presentation. Like I said, I told you, like I included, or in total were 15, because afterwards there was a third workshop, but I won't talk about this right now because this is the status quo of this presentation. But we can already see that, for example, the women, they, like I said, they put more, they emphasize the social well-being, where security also is included. While, for example, older individuals, here, the ones that, these specific ones who were already retired, they did not put that much emphasis on the unrestricted mobility. They said they are retirees, so they don't have that urgency of being at specific points at specific times. They did not commute. They can go shopping in the morning. They can go shopping in the evening. They don't care, kind of. So, and this was, well, nothing that I expected when I thought about this at first. They might be enablers of this scheme because, well, at least these two individuals, they also like to chat. So if you offer your private wallbox and people come to your place, charge at your place, you talk a little, they like this interaction, the social interaction. For example, this individual, social well-being, also put big emphasis on that. They like this idea, they are flexible. They could be enablers. Same for the chargees. They are flexible in charging, so they don't really care when the host would offer them the slot to charge their vehicle. Stressed on something or no? So, like I said, we also talked about the alternatives. So some of the people, they had the tendency towards this super regional one, more Airbnb style. It needs to be anonymous, really smooth, not too much interaction, and you can go from Christchurch to Dunedin, go there spontaneously, find a wallbox owner and charge there. This is the main idea of the super regional one, while the regional one is more this community idea and people sharing, maybe not even paying the host with money, but eggs or like trading stuff or like more friends and neighborhood scheme kind of. And these ideas differ in pricing, how to start the charging process, booking agreements and all that. And the interaction between host and chargee. Yeah, like I said, this would be the idea behind then evaluating these alternatives. Okay, so in this state of this presentation. Unfortunately, I did not, in the end, evaluate it or put numbers to it. But maybe then one last idea on this. So the German startups that I talked to, they focused on the supra-regional scheme. So they had this Airbnb idea. You go somewhere to a different city and you will find your host and it's cheaper than the public charging. This is the idea. But in Germany right now, there's no standardization, not in war boxes, not in, well, you don't have to pay at your own war box for the electricity, but there's no standardization. So when you arrive at a host garage or driveway, maybe you need a transponder to start your charging process. Maybe you need to go to the garage. So the host need to open the garage first. Payment, you might do it in cash. You might do it with this super regional, like with a third party kind of intermediating. This is not convenient. So this is why people do not adapt. They don't consider this, because usually in a different city, you just want to charge your vehicle and it shouldn't be too complicated. While the company, like I told you, from Great Britain, they focus on this regional, this neighborhood charging scheme. And there you might also not have the standardization, but you can build up routines. So they focus on a 500-meter radius around the chargee's place. So if I want to charge at someone's warbox, I will open my app and I will see the warbox within a range of 500 meters. So I can easily walk back home when I charge there. And I get to know the host. I will charge there once, I will charge there twice, I will build up routines. I get to know this person, I will build up trust. And this will kind of overcome the inconvenience. So in the end, I would pay less than at a public charging station, while not having this inconvenience, because I got to know it. Maybe even the host even gave me a key to his garage. So this is the main idea about warbox sharing. So we have these 5 fundamental objectives: sustainability, social well-being, profitability from the host perspective, costs from the chargee's perspective, unrestricted mobility, and ease of use, depending on the host, the chargee, the socio-demographics. These fundamental objectives might be weighted differently. And we have these 2 main concepts: the more Airbnb style super regional one and the neighborhood regional charging scheme, heterogeneous priorities. And where these hypotheses for the future were actually then included in a large-scale study that has not been published yet, and that is not part of my PhD, but I'm currently still working on it. And we asked, I think, 5,000 Germans in a choice experiment, where we kind of gave them our fundamental objectives and gave them different options with the different fundamental objectives having being satisfied to different degrees. Yup. That's, like I said, that's from 2023, I think. Yeah, so thank you for listening to this talk, and we might have time to briefly go into another topic or discuss on that.
Okay, great, thank you. I think we'll ask for questions on this. If there are no questions, then we might do another thing. But I think there are already probably plenty of questions. So I'll start with one from online. So this is Kirill in the physics department with us. So you mentioned, I'll just ask one of your questions, Kirill. It's a big long list. You mentioned the importance of security measures such as lighting and cameras. In that context, what prevents a situation where a private host charges excessive prices per kilowatt hour to cover the cost of security, assumes no responsibility for the vehicle during charging anyway, and the driver has little choice but to remain there for several hours? Get 1 star. I guess.
So the main idea of the question is when the host
is exploiting, I guess.
Like builds up the system, like those are all costs which in the end need to be covered. At least this was the main idea of the host in the workshops. So yes, I think the optimal case would be no cameras needed, because in Germany, I think, and not many people have cameras on their property, and also in public, it's really rare. Just culture-wise, it's not. Yeah, people would feel. Yeah, well, they don't want, they're not comfortable, and their privacy kind of being.
I think his main point was just around, what's to stop people doing, a host overcharging or.
Okay.
It's damaging the electric vehicle or.
Whereas the overcharging, like kind of wanting too much money, like you have to agree on the cost beforehand. So if you had an intermediate, like if it would be included in an app, like a matchmaking app, the host would kind of give his conditions or her conditions in advance, and then like pricing and the power of the charger, where his charger location is actually, and how easy it is to access it, and then the chargee can decide, will I go for it or not? Or also the charging slots, like the host will most probably give specific time slots during specific days, and the chargee needs to decide, does it match my needs or not? And this aspect of what happens if what happens if the car of the chargee gets randomly damaged by the wallbox for some reason? Like, who pays for it? Like, we need insurance for that, and right now there's at least no specific insurance for that. So this is also a systematic challenge.
I guess I could imagine a situation where I have solar PV on my roof and I really want people to use it. I could sell it during the middle of the day or something like that. So,
many of the hosts, they had PV on there.
So any questions?
Yeah, so is this taken off? I mean, there's situations like real Airbnb where you go and you stay and want to pay, or commercial and inside garages, commercial garages around town and stuff, where you'd think it would be just happening pretty widespread.
The wallbox sharing, like
sharing, but in a semi-commercial environment rather than more domestic, because it's it's needed for you go and stay in an Airbnb, you want to plug in, the host wants the money, so it should be kind of taken up in some situations.
I think it depends on culture as well. So we had one participant from a rural region in Germany. I don't even know the place, like a village more in the north, and they already have an energy community. Like they kind of build it up on their own. So they produce electricity together, found some schemes, and this is really difficult in Germany. It's from a regulatory perspective, it's not easy to start an energy community. So they already have that. They have car sharing. So I don't know how many families participated. Like, if I had to guess, it's around 20. So they had this tiny community, and I'm pretty sure if someone has a wallbox, the others will just use it, and they will find their ways to agree on the terms kind of shared usage. But then you also have Berlin, like people live in one house and they don't know each other. Like, it's so anonymous, and there's not much trust. You don't know you have never seen parts of your like people who live with you in a specific house. So in some areas it might just work and people find solutions, and in others you might need schemes.
So I presume it's like a 7 kilowatt wallbox we're talking. So it's going to take 3 or 4 hours to charge.
Yeah,
so you're not going to be able to pump lots of people through.
No, like I said, it won't make you rich. It's more the idea of
convenience. Lots of people using it isn't going to happen. So.
No, probably not. Like we have wallboxes up to 22 kilowatt, but for that you need a specific allowance from the grid operator. So they exist, but usually people have 11 kilowatt. Yeah, and it's more, I think it's people who would start with that, they want to actively support the idea of electrifying transport. So
It
it's
seemed 2 or 3 neighbours or something.
yes, probably. Because if you would want to ramp that up, or if you would want to make money, you would start a public charging station, kind of, which is also not easy as like without just out of an initiative of a private person, kind of.
Maybe a follow-up question on that. I just looked up, I think it's co-charger.
Yeah, co-charger.
Co-charger. So is there something, you said there was super regional versus regional, you said the UK one was regional. Is that the only reason it's succeeded, or is there something British?
They got some. I don't even know whether this is Great Britain wide or just like on a regional scale. They got some exemptions on taxation, so the hosts do not need to bother about starting a small company or something. They can just do it. I think unless you have to just have one wallbox, you're not allowed to have more than one wallbox. It needs to be clear that this is not a business. It's more supporting, sharing. Yeah. So this actually Great Britain they liked the idea.
Yeah, I mean, I find it strange in some ways. Like my mother's British, and there's some things about Britain that are very close, like, you know, their home is their castle and they don't invite people around for dinner, even if they're friends. So the idea of them inviting people to use their electricity to charge their car, I find that quite interesting if that's actually succeeded.
Yeah. Maybe also the need is bigger because in Germany, usually if you have in the more suburban areas, they look like, I would say, the suburban areas in Dunedin when it comes to there's a house and there's a driveway and there's a garden. So people have a place directly on the property where they can put their car and charge it. But the CEO of co-charger said that there are many regions in Great Britain where you can just park kind of in the public charging area, and you would need a cable that is pretty long to connect your vehicle to your own wallbox, kind of. And you would need to make this cable kind of cross public walkways. And this is officially also, again, a problem. I've seen in Germany people who just they put their cable over the walkway, over the pedestrians area, and just put some sort of carpet. Is it what is this again? On the floor? Carpet over it. So nobody cared. But if someone would care, they would have to remove it. Yeah, it's regulation and.
Well, I find that this is so fascinating because there's so many motivations on both sides of the equation, isn't there? Charge in, charge in. And I see why you've chosen to do it that way, but I've got this kind of general question. I'm really fascinated by Norway. It's just about got to the stage where there's no IC cars being sold in Norway. Have they done this subtle stuff really, really well, or does it just come down to it's really cheap, therefore?
I think Norway is it's just a different case. First, this is my personal opinion, and I'm not really deep dived into the reasons why they are so quick, but they have really renewable, like almost 100% renewable electricity due to their hydropower plants. They also have much pumped hydro, like storages. So in summer and winter, they can supply themselves. Then they are pretty rich because they have oil. And they don't have car industry. So in Germany, parts of the policies right now, for example, the government, they always try to protect the German car industry. And the German car industry is really good in building combustion engines since centuries. While now China, they are not that good they don't have this history. They don't put millions in combustion engines. But now they are really good in batteries and, an electric motor it's not complicated, kind of, right? So Germany is also slow, I think, in adopting electric vehicles because they try to protect or keep the car industry more alive in the way that it is. So I think in Germany we have not finally understood that if the car industry don't act quickly and by force, they will be gone if we continue with electrification.
But I guess just following on from that, in Norway, do a lot of people just charge at home, or are they tending to use public chargers? Do you know?
I don't know,
Okay.
but yes, maybe you know.
So, and in Norway, there's a really high proportion of people who live in a single house, like in New Zealand, with a garden and a drive and a garage, or somewhere off the road where they can charge. And also, I think one thing they did was a lot of shopping centres have EV, like a lot of chargers. So people, when they go about their normal daily life, they just, when they go shopping, they charge where they are. So
They probably do some things to the window. Because you can use those to charge them to the side.
Yeah, and I think they just started 10 years ago or something, yeah, with heavily supporting the uptake. So entering cities with your vehicle costs money, but not for electric vehicles. I think you're allowed to use the bus lanes. You then don't pay for parking and all these things. And then probably also like vehicle taxation is reduced. So they just, and the scheme has been there for almost 10 years. So while in Germany, for some reason, like with each government, or it happens quite often, they would then change kind of the course. So households and companies, they cannot really, they need investment security. And Norway gave this investment security, I guess.
And I think the thing about the charging within cities is really important. Like a friend of mine lived in Oslo, and she could really only buy an EV because she would have to pay like just to drive down the street if she didn't have an EV, because she lived in the city area where you were charged for driving a non-EV. So the only financial options to
I think we'll bring it to a close there, because people have things that they want to do in the next hour. So let's thank Paul again for this talk, and there's lots more.